Ay, 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 ay.
Yeah, apparently Edge Magazine gave Breath of the Wild a 10 out of 10 score. Nice. Anyways, ever since Breath of the Wild came onto the scene, a bunch of questions were spinning around where it takes place in the timeline. As a result, a bunch of theories swirled around the topic. Sequel ideas and even theories about quantum mechanics were being thrown all over the place. So, where does Breath of the Wild take place in the timeline? And don't worry, I'm not talking about spoilers for this video. The game is only 5 days away, so I'll keep that off for now. With that being said, I made another theory video about the whole timeline topic a little while ago. In it, I used the source Hyrule Historia as a foundation, and largely made an argument using sources available to us. Check it out if you're into timeline theories that uses that kind of information as a basis. But something hit me. IG Numa oversaw the development of Breath of the Wild under a single premise, which is to make a Zelda game that would break the series conventions. In other words, the game is meant to break the mold of the entire franchise and not to be hindered in any way from it. Adding on to that sort of sentiment, if you look at the timeline at an empirical sense or a verifiable observation, you can't see that really any placement for Breath of the Wild within the current timeline has its own set of contradictions that can go against it. So how do we reconcile these two scenarios, with IG Numa wanting to make a game without any restrictions, along with figuring out a timeline placement for it? A possible explanation is the creation of a fifth timeline. In a grand sense, it could explain a lot. It would give room for the Zelda team to make a Zelda game that didn't have to accommodate past ideas. And it could make sense for the timeline if Breath of the Wild took place in a brand new continuity, considering all the odd occurrences in the games, such as the Rito and Zora existing at a roughly similar time period. But if there is a new timeline, where would it take place? Well, IG Numa already confirmed that the game takes place after Ocarina of Time. So, will we see another split in the timeline? Perhaps. But how will we add this to the current info? Well, IG Numa did say that there would be a connection between Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess, but does this mean story connections, or does it just refer to aesthetic similarities under a developer's perspective? Not entirely sure on that end. So where does this leave us? Is there any proof that could give credence to a fifth timeline placement that does not head into spoiler territory? Well, there might. In a lot of Breath trailers that we have seen, there is this blackish red substance known only as Ganon's malice. The name is actually confirmed in sources, and interestingly enough, within Hyrule Historia page 113, the same name known as Ganon's malice makes an appearance. This substance has actually been seen before in other games, such as Four Sword Adventures, A Link to the Past, and elsewhere. In brief, it can be best described as the corrupting essence of Ganon. Looking at this malice at a structural sense, it comes as a result of Ganondorf turning into Ganon, which would make sense considering that this same substance has appeared in some form across the different timelines. And if that is the case, we can make some inferences. For one, if Breath of the Wild takes place after Ocarina of Time, then it must take place relatively near the time frame of that game. For example, Nintendo has already alluded in the past that the Temple of Time found in Breath of the Wild is the same in Ocarina. Coupled with that, along with the possibility of two castle towns, I do see it likely that Breath of the Wild takes place near the time frame of Ocarina. Now, in which timeline is another question, but let's move on to that. The initial malice explosion came from inside the Hyrule Castle, at least according to the trailers. Additionally, it is also seen that Hyrule experienced an era of peace prior to the calamity. With that in mind, let's look at the three other timelines. In the Dawnfall timeline, this couldn't make sense at least during the Imprisoning War, considering that in this timeline, there was no Hyrule Castle since it was destroyed, and the entire region was being engulfed in conflict as a result. There was no relative peace as seen in these trailers. In the Chao timeline, there is a host of other issues, considering that Ganondorf invaded Hyrule Castle in this timeline and was later exiled to the Twilight Realm, which does not fit in with Breath of the Wild's plot. And in the adult timeline, there was no hero around, and as a result, Ganon essentially won. But the goddesses fled Hyrule as a result. So in terms of Breath of the Wild taking place in a near time frame to Ocarina of Time, none of the timelines really fit all that well into the game, at least in near proximity to Ocarina. And this is where we hit into a bit of a black hole in terms of information. I'll admit, there really isn't any solid proof that Breath of the Wild takes place in a new timeline. However, considering the situation at hand, with the Zelda team wanting to create a game without limits, and the near paradoxical nature of the other timelines, a brand new continuity within the Zelda timeline for Breath of the Wild can make sense as a potential solution for this puzzle. And heck, perhaps this could explain what happened to the Sheikah in this game. But what do you guys think? Will Breath of the Wild take place within the timeline, or is there some hidden timeline that we don't know about? Let me know. I wanted to do this video since Breath of the Wild is literally 5 days away, and things will be hectic when that time comes. And to bring a bit of an update on the channel, Zelda Legends, the new series we're working on, has been pushed to this Wednesday. The reasons for this is because I really wanted to have a good first episode. And also, I am working on a special video that should be up relatively soon. I have been covering Breath of the Wild since 2013, and wow, has it been that long already. And I wanted to make a video about keeping up with it for so long and what it means when the game actually does come out. That video should be up soon, at least before Legends on March 3rd. Well, with that being said, I better get back to the grind. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Till then, have a great and relaxing rest of the day, and take care.